play on the field, the courts, and the ice is just one part of sports. Behind every game are the people hard at work so we can enjoy the action. They're the owners, administrators, agents, broadcasters, and promoters who bring the games to life. Meet them when you go behind the game with Patrick Klinger and Bill Robertson. Welcome to Behind the Game. I'm Patrick Klinger, president of Agile Marketing Partners. With me, as always, the inventor of the European Power Fade, the commissioner of the United States Hockey League, and my co-host, Bill Robertson. Good afternoon, B-Rob.
Good afternoon, Patrick. What a beautiful day it is. We have a great show ahead. Today's guest on Behind the Game needs no introduction in the college baseball and college athletics space. He is first a husband, a father, and mentor to so many. He's had an incredible run at the University of Minnesota as a coach and teacher of baseball and life skills. With us today, our special guest is head coach of the University of Minnesota baseball program, John Anderson. John, welcome to Behind the Game.
Well, it's quite an honor to be with two men I hold in high regard, Billy, Rob, and Patrick, and be fun to spend some time with you here in this interview.
Well, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule. I'll start right in with the first question, John. You know, it's been said that coaches are hired to be fired, yet you've lasted 40 years at the University of Minnesota. That speaks not only to your success on the field, but how you've managed the program off the field as well. What keeps you motivated to keep coming out season after season?
Well, that's a great question. Billy, I think about it often, to be honest with you, and sometimes I have to pinch myself. I go, where'd the 40 years of 40 seasons of head coaching go? It's gone quickly, but I think as I reflect and look back on the journey to some degree, I think being around young people, especially young people that have talent, they're bright, they have goals and aspirations and things they want to accomplish to do. They're just getting started on their adult journey, trying to find their way into the next thing for them. And I find that fascinating. I find it a fun process and an opportunity to be a part of helping them shape their journey and find themselves as adults and what they want to do academically and career-wise. And of course, all of them have the hope and dream of being able to play the game as long as they can until somebody tells them to take the uniform off and go home. It happens to all of us, and some sooner than later in my case. But anyway, I just find the opportunity to mentor, develop relationships, and then the relationships I've grown and developed over my long career, not only with our players, but former coaches, current assistant coaches, other coaches in the game, and then people in the community like yourselves. And I think the relationship piece has been the best part of my career. And I find those relationships of former players and those I've made friendships and relationships with and donors and people in the community, I hold them dear to my heart because they've all been a big part of my journey, and wouldn't have been possible for me to last 40 years without having great players and outstanding coaches around me, and of course people in this community that have supported me through the good and the bad. So it's been a great run, and I'm blessed in many ways to have this opportunity to spend my whole career at one institution. And it's unheard of today in our circles, as you mentioned. It's pretty unheard of to have a career and last at one place as long as I have, and I'm just fortunate that it's worked out that way.
Coach, your character, your loyalty to the University of Minnesota, your devotion to your players is really legendary. And winning games is obviously something that a coach is charged with doing. But having a positive influence on the lives of young men under your charge must be something that's really rewarding. How do you balance the winning piece with the character piece? You have to go out and win baseball games, but at the same time, you're trying to churn out young men who will be successful and contribute to society when their playing days are
Yeah, I think that's the balancing act. Obviously, if you don't win some games, you're going to get fired. As Billy Rob mentioned, that happens. And of course, we've won some games along the way. And I think first and foremost, it starts with the people I think you surround yourself with, the players and coaches. And I think especially the players. I think if you can recruit young men with integrity and character and find people that are good fits for your culture. And I've always told the recruits that we have contact with, we're looking for young people that want to have a balanced experience. They want to come to the University of Minnesota and find the opportunity to get a great degree from a strong public university. At the same time, they want to join a baseball program where I think historically, if you study our track record, I think the best thing we've done over the years is develop players. We don't get finished products. We're not in the Sun Belt. We're not in California, not in places where there's a lot more finished products come out of high school. And so I think we learned along the way, and I learned from probably Dick Siebert, that you got to be good at player development. You got to be good at teaching. You got to be able to be good at identifying prospects and people that you feel are going to get better once you center them into your culture and you get an opportunity to work with them on a day-to-day basis. But I really think it's finding the right fits and the kids with the intangibles and the kids that really want to be a part of the University of Minnesota and our baseball program, that really look at our program as an opportunity to prepare them for the next 50 years of their lives. And I think if you find the young man that's just interested in just a pure baseball experience, and we've had some, but we've transformed them into also wanting to take their academics serious. And you got to know which one of those people you maybe convert, that maybe don't see the academic world in the way that's necessary, because less than 1% of the kids are going to play the game and make a living at it over a long period of time. And so I think it's really about trying to find the right fits and the people that fit into your culture, and then being able to identify those that you really think can project into players that can win some games for you. And so I really tell people our goal is to prepare you for the next 50 years of your life. And we take our baseball program serious. We work very hard at it. We want to be competitive. We want to win games. But at the same time, we can't take our eye off the important target. That's getting an education, developing life skills, learning how to work with others, get along with people, become critical, independent thinkers, and all those things. We can't lose sight of that and the importance of that. And the game of baseball, filled with adversity, teaches us a lot about life, and we can use those opportunities that the game brings to us to really help some of these young people prepare for the next 50 years of their life. So I think it goes back to recruiting and identifying the people that fit in your program and those that don't. And I think we've been fortunate. We found more of those that fit than not. And I think that's why I'm still coaching at the University of Minnesota some 40 seasons later.
Well, nobody's done it better than you, John. And it's hard, when I think about this, you were named the head baseball coach at Minnesota at the age of 26. And at the time you were the youngest baseball coach. And I still believe that record's intact, the youngest baseball coach in Big Ten history, following George Thomas and the chief, Dick Siebert. What did you know during that time were the guiding principles for you, or how did you develop those over time? Was that through mentors, or is that just through experience? Because you've done it, as I said earlier, as well as anybody.
Well, first and foremost, I think Paul Giel obviously gave me the opportunity, and George Thomas recommended me, and Paul had watched me in my time working with the chief and George Thomas. And I say this not so much kiddingly, but I was available and cheap at the time. The athletic department didn't have a lot of resources. Paul Giel was traveling around the state every night, going to engagements and raising nickels, dimes, and quarters to try to keep the place afloat. But and so that's somewhat true. And people probably don't remember, but from 1982 through the 85 season, I was part-time, and I worked on the outside at Emory Air Freight, and was a salesman and tried to do both, and didn't have a full-time assistant. And usually it was a former player that was finishing his degree. And so that was a challenging time. And I was really, really haunted by the tradition and history of the program and not wanting to screw it up, obviously. But I was young. I was learning as I went along. So I tried to keep my eyes open, my ears open, and try to learn and grow as I went through the job. And obviously having a chance to work side by side with George Thomas and Dick Siebert, I learned a great deal about the game. But I think the part that I had to learn and grow into was being a leader, being a head coach, being responsible for a lot more than just the teaching that goes on the field or the recruiting, but the business side of it and all the other things that come with it. And then I had to get good at fundraising because we didn't have a lot of resources and had to find ways to stay competitive. And the game was evolving and it was getting to become a bigger game, and national recruiting and facilities were starting to change, and our league was starting to change. And so you had to get good at trying to either grow or you were going to die. And so I had to put my knee pads on and go out and start begging people for some support. And we had to upgrade some of our facilities. At least the old Siebert Field had to be upgraded in some ways. And we had to find dollars to enhance the student athlete experience. And so I think I really looked at it as, well, you can't wait for somebody else to step up and give you help. And Paul Giel always told me, if you can find somebody that can support you, fine with me, go for it. And so I started connecting with our alumni. And I really think Paul Molitor at the front end, when Paul was playing professionally and we were teammates and friends from college, when I got the job, I reached out to him and asked him if he would, help support the program, if, as me as the head coach. And he said, absolutely. And you can lean on me to help in any way. And if I can help, I'll say yes. And if I can, I'll say no. And I think having the confidence of him as a young coach really, really helped, because I could lean on him at times to help us in some ways, but also somebody I could count on to have conversations with about how we should get to the next thing. And he embraced me from the beginning. I think having his support, probably solved some of the questions others had. And to have a prominent alumni like that was willing to support you as the head coach and be there of assistant was really critical on the front end. And I'll be honest with you, I was young. I was never a head coach. I was inexperienced from that standpoint. But I think what really motivated me every day, I didn't want to let down the alumni and hurt the history and tradition of the program. And that kind of drove me. And it wasn't pretty the first year. We got off to a rough start, but we found a way to right the ship. And I remember getting swept by Iowa at home in a doubleheader with a few weeks left in the season. And we were around 500 and had a pretty good team. We thought we had a pretty good team. We just lost a lot of close games. And Dwayne Banks was the head coach at Iowa. And after the game, I was the last one to leave the park. And he was leaving. He came over to me, put his arm around me and said, John, Dick Siebert helped me when I was a young coach, and you're the same position you are. Stay with it. You're going to be an outstanding coach. That meant the world to me. And one of my colleagues would take the time to offer me that support at a time I was really questioning whether I was the guy for the job. And you're young, you don't have any experience, and you had the Sid Hartmans of the world and some of the others in the media in St. Paul that were after me and said I was too young. They shouldn't have hired me. And I remember getting a call from Paul Giel that night after that doubleheader sweep, and he said, John, you're going to be our head baseball coach. I'm behind you, and just do the best you can. You'll eventually figure this thing out. So again, I think that helped me. And then as I went along, about 10 years later, I had a lot of questions as a young coach, a lot of things I was trying to figure out as a leader and how to become a better leader and prove the success of our program. And I ran into a colleague that I'm very, very close to me today, Rick Aberman. And I call him the head coach. And he was a person that I think was a human performance guy and had worked in athletics at the University of Wisconsin, and their program moved back here, St. Louis Park, and Doug Woog introduced him to me. And he was tremendous to me, helped me answer some of my questions, and it really to this day has made me, I think, a better and more effective leader. And I think allowed me to stay in the business. I'm not sure I would have made it without his support. So when I have questions or I have things that I need to bounce off of, Rick's been a tremendous help to me, our assistant coaches, and our players in our program. And he's really helped us keep our rudder in the water and the ship pointed in the right direction, and being able to sort out some of the things that you question and some of the challenge and adversity you face, and help you with your confidence and continue to be a steady and consistent leader. So again, lots of people that came along and helped me in my career. It's not done alone. you got to surround yourself with good people. And I really think people in position of leadership, you know, you need to find somebody that you can have conversations with and ask some of the questions that you need to ask so you can learn and grow into a more effective coach, a more effective leader, somebody that you trust, that instead of isolating yourself and try harder and think you can figure it out all by yourself. I think that's a mistake many leaders make. I think you need to find somebody that can and help you stay on course, but also help you over some of the difficult times.
Coach, you've stayed loyal to the University of Minnesota, despite the fact that you could have gone elsewhere and gotten additional resources and additional support. What's kept you at the U of M for 40 years?
Well, a couple things, I think. First and foremost, I was afforded an incredible opportunity at a young age, and I felt like I had, and obviously I care a great deal about the program, and the loyalty piece for me was huge. And there were a few times I've had opportunities to leave to places I considered leaving to, but I don't know, for some reason, I always just felt like I owed this program and our alumni and Dick Siebert and George Thomas, Paul Giel, who was one of our first All-Americans who hired me. I always kept coming back to the fact that, you know, this was my university that I graduated from and joined the baseball program in. And so I always felt a strong loyalty and tie to the program. I also worried that if I left, what might happen to the program, to be perfectly honest with you. And it might be an opportunity for them to not support the program in the way that needed to be supported, or who knows, in the climate we're in and have been over the years where there's been threats to drop programs, who knows what would happen. So I think my strong ties to the university, the state of Minnesota, growing up here, my loyalties to our alumni and those that came before me, I kept coming back to that. And the other thing is, I think that can't go unsaid is I never had an athletic director walk down to my office and say, "Hey, John, you got to get rid of your shortstop. He's hitting 230 and we got to win more baseball games here. So he's got to go." And I've always prided myself on relationships, trusting relationships. So when we recruit young people, as long as they show up each day and they fit into the culture, they take an interest in others, and they work hard to become the best player, best student, person they can be, then they stay in the program. And that's not the case at some places. It's win at all costs. And you have to make some choices and you have to do some things that I think come in conflict with my values. And I always felt my values fit into the philosophy at the University of Minnesota. And I was never pushed across the line in terms of my personal values and how I treated our players and the relationships I had with them. And it's getting harder today. The pandemic has created a real mess in college baseball because of the extra year of eligibility and the roster challenges that everybody has. There's 2,200 kids in the baseball transfer portal this year because of it. We had to let some kids go that we just didn't have room with in the roster limitations. You have to make choices. It was the hardest summer for me in my career, and this has been the hardest time to have to not be able to fulfill that commitment I made to those young people to finish their careers. And it's not their fault. I feel for them. But I have bosses and people that have told me that we have to be at a certain number roster-wise, and we have to fit into the expectations that they have for our roster and the number of people we carry. We have to stay within 11.7 scholarships, it's the NCAA maximum, and the number of counters and people you're allowed in the roster. So it's been difficult. I'll be very, very honest with you. And so we're getting through that. We finally got a roster set, but I feel for those kids that had to find another place, or there's a few of them that aren't playing any longer because they couldn't find another place to go to because the rosters were all full. So it's nobody's fault. It's a product of the pandemic, and unfortunately, the players and the young people had to pay some of the consequences. And it's been difficult for me, to be honest with you, because I never ran a player out that we recruited that had upheld the expectations and responsibilities that we have for people in our program. Never asked those people to go away. And it's a different time, no time I've ever experienced, anybody's ever experienced in their careers. And so that's been the hard part for me.
Well, your loyalty to your student athletes and to that program is second to none, John. I applaud you, and your value system as good as it gets. And if I had a son who played college baseball, I'd want him to play for you because of those things. And I mean that sincerely to you. That's a credit to you. Coaching has changed quite a bit since you took the helm back in 1981. How have the expectations of the administration, the student athletes, and parents changed over that time, in your opinion?
Substantially. It's really different than it was back in the early 80s to what it is today. I think the recruiting piece has changed the most significantly. I think the development of these indoor training facilities, these traveling teams, these opportunities for kids to train and practice the game year round and be a part of these travel teams that go nationally, and the amount of money the parents are investing in these experiences for their kids, I think has put more pressures on the families and the kid to eventually get a college scholarship opportunity or a chance to play Division I college baseball. And so I think the impact of the origins of these new teams in year-round baseball, and hard to find 2 and 3 sport athletes today because of this effort that's going on in amateur baseball. And I think it's really put a lot of pressure on the families and the kids to find that opportunity. I think it's impacted some of the kids in their development. I think they feel that pressure. They don't want to let their mom and dad down. They got this huge investment they've made in them. The best players in Minnesota, they're not playing Legion baseball in the summer. They're on these traveling teams and they're going to these national showcases all over the country. If you want to see the best players in Minnesota play, you got to go to Atlanta or Cincinnati or Indianapolis or one of the large showcases that are going on, where there's kids from teams from all over the country, and these showcases go on for at least a week at multiple fields. And that's different. Early on, we didn't start recruiting our class until kids were seniors in high school. We go out and watch them in the spring. And you recruited, basically most schools at that time recruited kids in their own areas of the country. People didn't run around the country. It was and recruit players from all different places. And so the showcases, the traveling teams, the advisors the kids have now make it really, really easy for the programs in Sun Belt to recruit the whole country. They don't come to Minnesota and sit on a bench and watch a high school baseball game. They pluck down in Atlanta and they can see all the best players in the country at one place. And so that's really changed. The high school coach is less involved in the recruiting process, because these kids are their travel coaches, are their advisors, and the people you got to work through. Some of them do have actual advisors that you have to work through in order to recruit some of these kids. So sometimes you call the high school coach and he says, "What are you calling me for? I don't know what's going on with the kid." He call his traveling coach, call his advisor. I have no idea what's going on. And that's a big, big difference. Unfortunately, I don't think it's all good. But again, it's the nature of what's going on in our game right now. And so, yeah, we pick our kids out, seniors. We wouldn't sign our class till the summer after these guys graduated from high school in many cases. And some of the best players we've signed in my career are guys we've signed in their senior year, still to this day. Taryn Vavra, that we signed a few years ago, that was an All-American on our 2018 Super Regional team. He sprouted up his junior year and gained 4 inches and all of a sudden became a player, and nobody knew about him. He didn't play travel baseball. He played Legion baseball, high school baseball. All of a sudden, he sprouts up and starts looking like a player. We didn't sign him until May of his senior year in high school. So, I don't think it's necessarily always good. And there are late developers and people that show up later, but it's changed so much. And now we're recruiting 2 and 3 years out. We just had a prospect camp at the university last Friday and Saturday, and we had kids from the 22, 23, and 24 graduating classes. And some of these kids are being recruited by everybody in the country. And so you're trying to project what you need 2 years from now. 23s and 24s, they're not going to play their first college game till, February of 24 and February 25. And you're trying to make projections of what you need in your roster, what your age situation is going to be like. And so there's not a day that doesn't go by that we're not trying to project long-term our roster, what our needs are, what our scholarship availability is. And you feel like a GM some days more so than a coach because you're managing rosters and bodies and trying to project what you need in the future. So it's so much different than it used to be. And there's kids making commitments in their sophomore year in high school. And in many cases, not many, but there are some cases where kids don't pan out to be what everybody thought they were going to be by their senior year. And some of the programs call them up and say, we're no longer interested. You're going to have to find a different opportunity until they sign a tender, a national letter of intent. And that's happened as well. So it's different, no question about it. And unfortunately, I don't think it's all good. And you don't know as much about a kid when you make a quick decision. He can't come on campus. You can't have any personal contact. You're just evaluating the kid based on what you get from the travel coach. And of course, he's going to tell you all the right things because he's got to sustain his business and get kids recruited. So you got to be careful that you can't end up in a place where you don't know as much about the kid as you thought you did. You end up with somebody that's not a good fit for your program.
Hey, John, unfortunately, we've run out of time. I mean, Bill and I could chat with you all afternoon, and I certainly wish that we could. Our mutual friend, a man that we both respect a great deal, Charlie Nelson, wanted me to pass along his greetings today. I know Charlie holds you in the very highest of regards and attributes much of his success now as the CEO of KLN Family Brands to the lessons he learned from you at the University of Minnesota when he was a player under you.
Well, that's kind of him, but I think I'm a better coach in person because I had an opportunity to mentor Charlie and help him find his way in his life. And it wasn't always a smooth ride. But I'm so proud of Charlie and what he's done, not only for KLM Family Brands, but for the broader community and people that have needs that special needs that they've supported. And I couldn't be more proud. And again, that go back to what I said at the beginning, we're trying to prepare people for the next 50 years of their life. And would have been easy to throw Charlie away early in his career when he wasn't the best player and he was having some personal challenges in his life. And some programs would have tossed him to the side of the road and got the next guy. I don't want to invest the time and energy to help this kid. So anyway, it's a pleasure to have that relationship with Charlie.
Yeah. And a pleasure to have a relationship with you, John. Thank you for coming on Behind the Game today. Billy, Rob, great to see you as well. Continue to work on that European power fade over the weekend.
I'm going to do my best.
Right, terrific. And thank all of you for watching Behind the Game. We'll see you again next month.